A hotel manager in a tailored suit looked at the woman standing at his front desk and made a decision in 3 seconds. He decided she didn't belong. He decided this without asking her name, without checking the reservation, without looking at anything other than the way her coat was worn at the elbows and the way she was holding her suitcase handle with both hands, the way people hold things they've carried a long time. He picked up her reservation printout from the counter where she'd slid it across to him, glanced at it, and set it back down on his side of the desk. Not back to her, on his side. "I'm going to need you to step aside, ma'am. There are guests behind you." There were no guests behind her. The lobby of the Arden Grand Hotel in downtown Atlanta was quiet. A Tuesday afternoon in March. A bellhop stood near the revolving door looking at his phone. A woman in a yellow blazer sat in one of the velvet lobby chairs reading something on a tablet. The fireplace near the entrance was running, the kind of gas fireplace that exists so that lobbies feel expensive without anyone having to tend to it. The woman at the front desk didn't move. Her name was Dio Adewale. She was 31 years old. She was wearing a black wool coat with worn elbows that she'd bought 6 years ago at a Goodwill in Houston, the week she arrived in America, with 2 suitcases, $400, and a nursing degree that this country would take another 3 years to recognize. She was 5'4" and slim, with close-cropped natural hair and a small scar above her left eyebrow from the time her brother threw a mango at her when she was 9, and his aim was considerably better than his intention. She had driven 4 hours from Raleigh to Atlanta. She had a conference badge in her coat pocket. She had a reservation confirmation on her phone and a printed copy on the counter between her and the man who had just decided, in 3 seconds, that she was someone to be managed rather than welcomed. His name was Chad Mercer, 34 years old. Assistant general manager, 18 months in the role, the kind of man who believed that running a 4-star hotel lobby made him the gatekeeper of something important. "I said step aside, ma'am. I have a reservation," Dio said. Her voice was calm. It was the voice of a woman who had learned, across many years and many counters, that calmness was the only armor that didn't get you removed from the building. "Our system is showing some issues with your booking." "What kind of issues?" "I'm not able to go into the details. Can you try?" He looked at her the way people look at a slow internet connection, like the problem was hers. "The rate you booked was a promotional rate. Those are subject to availability and confirmation, and I'm seeing a flag on the account." "What flag?" "A processing flag." Dio looked at him for a moment. She had heard language like this before. Language that meant something else. Language dressed in policy so that the person using it could look themselves in the mirror afterward and say they were just doing their job. "I confirmed this reservation 3 weeks ago," she said. "I have a confirmation number. I have a confirmation email. I am here for the Healthcare Leadership Conference, which starts tomorrow morning in your ballroom B, which I know is in this hotel, because I can see the signage for it from where I'm standing." She did not raise her voice. She said this the way she said everything, with precision, the way her mother had taught her. Omalade Adewale had raised 2 children in Lagos on a teacher's salary and the firm belief that the sharpest tool a black woman could carry in this world was the ability to speak clearly when everyone around her wanted her to be confused. Chad clicked on his keyboard. Clicked again. The clicking was performance. She knew it. He probably knew she knew it. "I can offer you a room at our partner property on Peachtree Street. That is not this hotel. It's a very comparable property. The conference is here. Many of our conference guests find the partner property convenient because I have a reservation at this hotel, in this building. For tonight and tomorrow night, I would like to check in." Chad looked at her. Then he looked at the printed confirmation she had slid across the counter, which was still sitting on his side of the desk. He picked it up. He folded it once. He placed it on the shelf below the counter, out of her sight. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to step aside while we sort this out. If you continue to be difficult, I'm going to have to ask security to. Is there a problem here?" The voice came from the hallway to the left of the front desk, a corridor that led to the conference offices and the hotel management suite on the ground floor. A door that had been, until 30 seconds ago, closed. The woman who walked out of it was 56 years old. Her name was Vivienne Osei. She was the general manager of the Arden Grand Hotel Atlanta. She had been in hotel management for 28 years, had run properties in Accra, London, and Dubai before coming to Atlanta 6 years ago. She was wearing a charcoal blazer and small pearl earrings, and the particular expression of someone who had just heard something through a door that made her set down whatever she was holding and walk out. Chad straightened. "Miss Osei, I was just handling a situation with... I heard how you were handling it." She walked to the front desk. She looked at Dio. "Good afternoon. My name is Vivienne Osei. I'm the general manager. Can I ask your name?" "Dio Adewale." Vivienne looked at the screen. She typed something. She looked at Chad. "She has a confirmed reservation," Vivienne said. "2 nights, junior suite. Confirmed 3 weeks ago, payment processed. 0 flags on the account." Chad's jaw moved. The system was showing. "The system is showing a confirmed reservation." Vivienne's voice did not get louder. It got quieter, the way certain voices get when they are choosing words with great care. "Pull up the confirmation number." He pulled it up. She read it. She looked at him for a moment in the way that people who run things look at the people who misuse the small piece of running that has been given to them. She reached below the counter. She retrieved the folded confirmation paper and placed it back on Dio's side of the desk. "Miss Adewale," she said, "I apologize for the wait. We'll get you checked in immediately. Your room is ready." She nodded to the other front desk associate, a young woman named Afia, who had been standing to Chad's left with her eyes forward and her face very carefully blank in the way of someone who has seen this before and is relieved someone finally walked out of that door. Afia began processing the check-in. Dio picked up her printed confirmation. She folded it and put it back in her pocket. If you've ever watched someone look at a person and see only the outside of them, the coat, the suitcase, the way they hold what they carry, stay with me. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what is about to happen in this hotel lobby in the next 10 minutes is going to stay with you for a long time. Let me take you back to the beginning. Dio Adewale was born in Lagos, Nigeria in 1993. She was the second of 3 children. Her mother, Omolade, taught mathematics at a secondary school in Surulere for 31 years. Her father, Emmanuel, worked for a shipping company and came home every Friday with a small bag of chin-chin from the woman who sold them outside the bus station, because that was a thing he had done since before Dio was born, and he saw no reason to stop. Dio was the kind of child who read everything. Cereal boxes, road signs, the spines of books at the stall outside their neighborhood market. By 12, she had decided she wanted to be a doctor. By 16, she accepted that nursing school was what the family budget could support and had adjusted her ambition accordingly, which is to say she had not reduced it, only redirected it, the way water finds a new path when the first one is blocked. She graduated with her nursing degree at 22. She worked for 2 years at a Lagos hospital where the wards were understaffed and the equipment was old, and the nurses did the work of 3 people because that was what the patients needed, and Dio was constitutionally incapable of doing less than what the patients needed. She came to America at 24 Houston first, then Raleigh. Her nursing credentials took 3 years to fully transfer and be recognized, during which time she worked as a home health aide, $13.50 an hour, 12-hour shifts, driving a 2004 Honda Civic with 200,000 miles on it, because she refused to take the bus, because the bus would have made her late. And being late was not something Dio Adewale did. She kept a small journal during those 3 years, not a diary, a list. She wrote down, in blue ink, every patient she cared for. Just their first name and one thing about them. Norman, liked Perry Mason. Evelyn, kept a photo of her dog on the nightstand. Franklin, wanted to die at home and we made sure he did. She kept this journal because she had learned something in those 3 years that no nursing school had taught her. That the people who slipped most easily through the cracks of the system were the ones the system had already decided were not worth the paperwork. She became a registered nurse at 27. She was hired at WakeMed in Raleigh within 2 weeks of getting her license. By 30, she was charge nurse on the cardiac floor. By 31, she had been selected out of 47 applicants from across the country to present her research on equity gaps in cardiac care at the Healthcare Leadership Conference in Atlanta. Her research was called When the System Forgets the Patient. It was about the ways in which intake procedures, insurance verification systems, and front desk triage decisions created invisible barriers for patients who were elderly, uninsured, visibly poor, or visibly foreign. She had spent 2 years on it. It had a data set of over 4,000 patient cases. It had been peer-reviewed and accepted for publication in a healthcare journal that did not accept most things. She had driven 4 hours to present it. She had a black wool coat with worn elbows and a suitcase she'd carried a long time. And the assistant general manager of the Ardennes Grand Hotel had looked at these things and made a decision in 3 seconds. Now Vivian Osei was standing at the front desk, and the check-in was being processed by Afia, and Chad was standing very still in the way of someone trying to figure out how bad this is going to be. "Mrs. Adewale," Vivian said, "again, I apologize. Is there anything we can do to make your arrival more comfortable? Would you like someone to bring your bags up?" "I'm fine," Dio said. "Thank you. Are you here for the leadership conference?" "Yes. I'm presenting tomorrow morning." Vivienne looked at her the way people look at someone when they are recalibrating. When they are taking what they assumed and replacing it with what is actually there. "What are you presenting on?" Deo looked at her for a moment. Something quiet moved across her face. Equity gaps in cardiac care, specifically, how intake and verification processes create barriers that delay treatment for patients who don't fit the system's preferred profile. The lobby was quiet. The fireplace hummed. The bellhop near the revolving door had put his phone away. Afia had gone very still behind the keyboard. Chad Mercer said nothing. Vivian Osei looked at Dio Adewale for a long moment. "I would like to hear that presentation," she said. "If you're willing to have one more person in the room." Dio picked up her room key from the desk where Afia had placed it. "The session is open," she said. "Ballroom B, 9 a.m. She picked up her suitcase. She walked toward the elevators. She did not look back. Now, there are things that happened after she stepped into that elevator that Dio didn't see. Things that happened in the lobby and in the hallway and in the management suite behind that door. First, Chad. Vivian did not fire him in the lobby. She was not a person who performed consequences for an audience. She waited until Dio was in the elevator and the doors had closed, and then she turned to Chad and said quietly, "My office, now." He followed her through the door and into the hallway and into the office with the oak desk and the framed commendations and the window that looked out onto the side street where the hotel's delivery trucks came and went. She sat. He stood. Walk me through what happened. He tried. He tried the processing flag. He tried the promotional rate. He tried the system issue. She let him try all of it. Then she said, "You folded her confirmation and put it under the counter." He had no try for that. Chad. You looked at a guest who had a valid reservation, confirmed payment, 0 flags, and you told her to step aside. You told her there was a problem with her booking that does not exist. You told her the partner property on Peachtree was comparable, knowing her conference is here, and you folded her paperwork and put it where she couldn't see it. A pause. Tell me what you actually saw when she walked in. He said nothing. Tell me what you decided before she opened her mouth. He looked at the desk. I'm going to tell you what I know about that decision, Vivienne said. I know it took you 3 seconds. I know it was based on her coat and her suitcase and the way she was standing. I know you didn't look at the screen before you decided. Because the flag you invented doesn't exist on any screen in this hotel. I've looked. She opened a drawer. She put a piece of paper on the desk. This is a written warning, first and formal. It goes in your file. You will attend the bias and hospitality training that corporate offers in April. You will not be on front desk coverage without a supervisor present for 90 days. She paused. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., you are going to sit in ballroom B and you are going to listen to Ms. Adiwis's Wales presentation. The whole thing, without your phone. He looked up. You tried to remove her from a building she had every right to be in, Vivienne said. The least you can do is hear what she has to say. He took the paper. He left. Vivienne sat alone in the office for a moment. She looked at the window. The delivery trucks coming and going. She thought about Lagos. She thought about the first time she had walked into a hotel in London, 28 years ago, for her first management interview, and the woman at the front desk had asked her 3 times whether she was sure she had the right address. She thought about the black wool coat she had been wearing that day, bought secondhand, because she was 28 years old and just starting out, and how she had stood at that counter with her back very straight because her mother had taught her that the straightness of your back is the one thing nobody can take from you. She had gotten the job. She had run that hotel for 3 years, and then moved on to a better one, and then a better one, and then here. She thought about Dio Adewale standing at the counter with her confirmation printout, and her worn coat, and her calm, precise voice. She thought, I almost didn't hear it. If I had been 1 minute later walking out of that office. If I had been on a call, or in a meeting, or simply not paying attention to the sounds on the other side of that door. She picked up her phone. She called the kitchen. She asked them to send a welcome tray to the junior suite on the 7th floor. Fruit and tea, and whatever the kitchen had made today that was warm. Not complimentary, she told them. Not because she's a VIP. Because it's cold outside and she drove 4 hours and someone was rude to her when she arrived, and people deserve warmth when they've been made to feel unwelcome. The kitchen sent up a tray with 2 kinds of tea, sliced mango, and a small bowl of roasted groundnuts. Deo sat on the edge of the hotel bed in her worn coat, which she hadn't taken off yet, and looked at the tray. She picked up a piece of mango. She thought about her mother. She thought about how Omalade Adewale had told her, the night before she flew to America, to sit down at every table she was allowed to sit at, and a few that she wasn't. She thought about how her mother had pressed a small thing into her hand at the departure gate. A simple bead bracelet, green and gold, the colors of the Nigerian flag, that her own mother had worn, and her mother before that. You take it with you, Omalade said. When you feel small, hold it. Remember you come from women who were not small. Dio held the bracelet now, the beads warm from sitting on her wrist all day. She had a presentation in the morning. She had 4 years of data and 2 years of writing, and a room full of healthcare leaders who had traveled from across the country to hear her say the things she had been trying to say since the first time she watched a home health patient get lost in a phone tree for 2 hours because they didn't know the right words. To push through the system, she ate the mango. She drank the tea. She let the warmth of it reach somewhere that the 4-hour drive and the front desk and the folded piece of paper had made cold. Then she opened her laptop and reviewed her slides one more time, because Dio Adewale did not leave things to chance, and tomorrow she had something important to say. There was a woman at the conference registration table the next morning named Rue, 23 years old. She was a hospitality intern from Georgia State, working the conference for course credit at $12 an hour, which was more than she'd made at the coffee shop, but less than she'd need to actually live in Atlanta without 3 roommates. She had a name badge that said staff, and a conference tote bag she'd been given that morning, that she had immediately started filling with the free pens from the registration table, because a pen is a pen, and rent is rent. She had watched the whole thing at the front desk yesterday. She had been coming through the lobby with a stack of conference packets when she saw Deo at the counter, and the way the manager was standing, and the way Deo was standing. She had stopped near the fireplace, not far enough away that she couldn't hear. And she had listened. She had watched the folding of the paper. She had watched the door open. That morning she was at the registration table when Deo came through the lobby at 8:45 in a dark blue blazer and the same worn coat, her conference badge clipped to her lapel, her laptop bag over her shoulder. Rue watched her come in. She watched the way Deo moved, straight-backed and unhurried, the way of someone who knows exactly where they are going and has decided not to be rushed getting there. "Good morning," Rue said, even though Deo was already registered and didn't need to stop. Deo stopped. "Good morning. I was in the lobby yesterday," Rue said. Then she didn't know what else to say. Deo looked at her for a moment. "Are you studying hospitality? Hotel management, junior year?" Deo nodded slowly. "Come to the session this morning if you can get away from this table. Ballroom B. What I'm presenting, some of it applies to hotels as much as hospitals." Rue looked down at the registration table, then back up. "I'll see if someone can cover for me." Dio walked toward Ballroom B. Rue texted the other intern and asked her to come 20 minutes early. At 9 a.m., Ballroom B held approximately 90 people. Hospital administrators, department heads, nursing directors, policy researchers, a woman from the Department of Health who had flown in from Washington the night before, a journalist from a health equity newsletter who was sitting in the back with a small notebook, and in the second row, slightly off to the left, Chad Mercer, in a hotel uniform without his name badge, holding nothing, looking at the floor, and near the back, standing against the wall because all the seats were taken, Rue, who had found someone to cover the registration table, and in the front row, on the aisle, Vivian Osi. Dio walked to the podium. She didn't open with a statistic. She opened with a story. She said, "When I was 26 years old, I was a home health aide in Houston. I had a patient named Norman. He was 81. He was diabetic, and his foot was getting worse, and his doctor's office kept telling him his referral was being processed. For 6 weeks. He had a referral number. He had insurance. He just didn't know how to push through the system, and nobody in the system was willing to push for him." She paused. "He lost the foot. Not because medicine couldn't help him, because the process didn't see him." The room was quiet. That is what I'm here to talk about today. Not about medicine. About the moment before medicine. The moment when a person walks through a door, and someone on the other side of a counter decides, in 3 seconds, whether they are worth the paperwork. She clicked to her first slide. She spoke for 40 minutes. She spoke about intake procedures and verification systems, and the ways in which the design of those systems creates delay for patients who don't fit a preferred profile. She showed the data. 4,000 cases, 3 hospitals, a measurable, documented, consistent pattern of longer wait times correlating with patients who were elderly, visibly uninsured, or whose appearance did not match the system's implicit image of a paying patient. She spoke about a weaver bird. Not the same one, a different telling of the same truth, she said. There is a bird in West Africa that builds the most intricate nests in the world. Woven grass, perfect structure, hidden inside the branches of a tree. People walk past that tree every day and look at the branches and the sky. They never look at the nest. But the nest is the thing. The nest is what holds the life inside it. She looked at the room. Every patient who walks through a hospital door is carrying a nest, a whole life, a name, a history, a person who loves them and is waiting to hear how they are. The system is very good at looking at the branches, the paperwork, the card, the coat, and very bad at seeing the nest. In the second row, slightly off to the left, Chad Mercer was looking at the podium. His hands were on his knees. He was not looking at the floor anymore. When she finished, there was a moment, just a breath, and then the room began to applaud. Not the polite conference applause of people who are waiting to check their phones. The other kind. The kind that starts in the front row and moves backward and doesn't stop until it wants to. Vivian O.C. clapped and said nothing, because some things don't need words. Rue, at the back wall, pressed her hands together and thought about hotel management school and the registration table, and the way someone's face changes in 3 seconds when they have already decided before they look. After the session, there was a reception in the hallway outside ballroom B. Small plates of food, coffee, the professional mingling of people who have things to say to each other. Deo was standing near the window, plate in hand, talking to the woman from the Department of Health, when she felt someone stop near her. She turned. It was Chad. He was not in the conversation. He was just standing at the edge of it, waiting, the way you wait when you know you have something to say that isn't easy and you are trying to find the moment. The woman from the Department of Health moved away to refill her coffee. Chad looked at Dio. "I was there," he said. "This morning. Your session." Deo looked at him. "Ms. Osi told me to go," he said. "But I want you to know, I didn't leave at the break." He paused. "I stayed." She looked at him for a long moment. The way she had looked at him yesterday at the front desk, with the same stillness, except that yesterday the stillness was armor and today it was something else. Assessment, maybe. Or patience. The kind of patience that is not passive, that is a choice made in real time. "The part about the nest," he said, and then he stopped like he had run out of words for what he wanted to say about the part about the nest. She waited. "I looked at your coat," he said. "I decided before I looked at anything else, and you're the one who—" He stopped again. "I'm sorry," he said. "That's what I came to say. I'm sorry." Dio set her plate down on the window ledge. "Everybody makes that decision," she said. "Every person in every lobby and every waiting room and every intake desk. The question is what you do when someone shows you that you made it." He looked at her. "You stayed," she said. "That counts." She picked up her plate. She moved back into the conversation. Chad stood at the edge of the room for a moment, and then walked back toward the lobby where his hotel was, and his job was, and the front desk where he would stand tomorrow morning, and look at whoever walked through the door. Near the end of the reception, Vivian Ose found Deo by the coffee table. "I want to ask you something," Vivian said. "Ask the research you're presenting. The framework for redesigning intake processes. Have you worked with hotel groups? Because the problem you're describing, the 3-second decision, the invisible triage, It doesn't only happen in hospitals. Deo looked at her. I've thought about it, she said. I haven't done it yet. The Arden Group has 16 properties, Vivienne said. We have a training and policy budget, and I am looking at someone who has spent 4 years building the most precise framework I have heard for naming something that most people in my industry pretend doesn't exist. A pause. Would you be willing to have a conversation? Deo looked at her for a moment. She thought about the 4-hour drive, the lobby, the counter, the paper being folded and put where she couldn't see it. She thought about Rue at the back wall, with her conference tote full of free pens, watching. She thought about Norman, who lost his foot because no one was willing to push through the system for him, and about all the Normans she hadn't been able to write down in the little blue journal because she hadn't been there. Yes, she said, I'm willing to have that conversation. Vivienne extended her hand. Dio shook it. Later that afternoon, Dio sat by the hotel window in her room on the 7th floor. She still had the welcome tray, cleared now except for a few ground nuts she'd been eating while she worked. Her laptop was open. She was writing. Not her research, not her slides. She was writing in the blue journal. Still blue ink. Still the same format. Chad. Stayed for the whole session. Rue. Gave up her table to be in the room. Vivienne. Heard through a door and walked out. She looked at the ground nuts in the small bowl. Someone in the kitchen had sent them. She didn't know who. She didn't know what made a kitchen worker at a 4-star hotel in Atlanta decide to put roasted groundnuts on a welcome tray for a guest they had never met, except that someone had asked them to, and they had. She wrote one more entry. Kitchen. Knew what warmth looks like. She closed the journal. She held the bracelet on her wrist, green and gold, warm from her skin. She thought about her mother at the departure gate. She thought about the words Omalade had said that morning in Lagos 7 years ago. You take it with you. Remember you come from women who were not small. Outside the window, Atlanta moved the way cities move in the late afternoon. Buses and taxis and people in coats walking fast toward wherever they were going. All of them carrying something. All of them with a whole life inside a coat that nobody could see from the outside. Deo watched the city for a while. Then she opened her laptop and started working on something new. A framework. Not for hospitals this time. For hotels. For every lobby in every building where someone walks through a door, holding a suitcase they've carried a long time, and someone on the other side of a counter has 3 seconds before they decide who that person is. 3 seconds is long enough to get it right. That is the lesson. A woman drove 4 hours to say something true. They looked at her coat and her suitcase and decided she was someone to be managed. But the woman in that lobby had spent 4 years building a framework to fix the exact system that had just tried to push her out of the building. She could have made noise. She could have demanded. She could have done what the coat and the suitcase and the folded paper absolutely gave her the right to do. Instead, she spoke clearly, the way her mother taught her. She stayed calm. She got on an elevator and ate mango and reviewed her slides. And the next morning she stood at a podium, and she said the true thing clearly enough, that the man who had looked at her coat and decided walked in on instructions, and stayed because he wanted to. Power is not volume. Power is a woman in a worn coat, who knows exactly what she came to say, and says it, because every tale has a lesson, and New African Folk Tales never forgets.